Hey, what's up? This is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week's guest is Mark Bell, owner of Super Training Gym and the company Slingshot. He's also a former elite level powerlifter. He's benched over 850, squatted over 1,000, and deadlifted over 700 pounds. Mark is one of the most iconic names in the powerlifting industry. And I went into this show thinking that we were going to have two distinct parts. I was going to talk to him about business and I was going to talk to him about powerlifting. But during the show, I realized a lot of what makes Mark successful in one is exactly what makes him successful in the other. And so, you know, if there's a theme to this show, it's Mark's personal definition and recipe for success. And also what he sees other elite level powerlifters doing that others aren't. So tons of really good knowledge in this one pertaining to business as well as sport, as well as just living a better, more fulfilling life. So before we get started, if you're a regular listener of the show and you haven't done so already, please throw this on pause really quickly, head to iTunes and leave me a quick review. I'm going to invite any of you that are interested to call into a voicemail that I have set up and leave some questions. So then I'm going to play back your question on the podcast, and I'm either going to answer the question myself or I'm going to get one of my guests to help me answer those questions. If you're interested, the number is 801-449-0503. That's 801-449-0503. Hope you enjoy the show. Hey, this is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. I'm here with Mark Smelly Bell, owner of Slingshot, as well as a number of other companies. Mark, I know you're an incredibly busy guy. Thank you so much for making some time to do this with me.
Mike Casu.
Nailed it.
Much. I was wondering how the hell to say that last name. I'm sure you get that all the time.
Yeah, I've literally never heard a single person get it right on the first time. So you crushed it, man.
Yeah, I just had to pick up what you were what you just said. So I just
that's right.
That worked pretty good.
Well, hey, man, here's where I want to start. You have a really long track record of success. You were an elite level powerlifter, having squatted over 1,000 pounds, benched over 800, and now you're a wildly successful entrepreneur with multiple very successful companies. What people and or experiences do you most attribute to that success? Is it a family member, maybe playing sports, a life-altering experience? And it can be multiple things, but what do you most attribute this track record of success to?
The main thing is my success has come from lifting weights. You know, it's not really any more complicated than that. And not from lifting the most amount of weight. I'm not the strongest guy. You know, I think people sometimes put me up on a pedestal, which I appreciate, which is really cool. But a lot of it has come from lifting and the lessons learned in the gym and the lessons learned from the iron. Basically, I've started lifting when I was about 12 and have been in this industry for a long time. But I learned over that long period of time that you need to have a lot of it's a long game, it's a long battle, and so you need a lot of patience if you want to be strong. It fucking takes forever. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're going to be strong and acquire some sort of strength, it takes a really long time, and I think that's an attribute that I have over some other folks where I know that stuff's going to take a long time. If I'm working on a product, I'm like, oh shit, that's going to take about a year. And some of the people I work with are like, oh, why is that going to take a year? And I'm like, I don't really know, but that's just how long it fucking takes. And in the grand scheme of things, it's actually pretty short if you think about it.
Right.
It's not really that long a period of time. It just it kind of seems like it's a long time when you're in it, you know. And so having patience has been a huge attribute that I think has helped me a lot. I've had a lot of different mentors over the years, a lot of different people that have impacted my life, but I've had these really strong pivot points in my life But again, the what I do in the gym on a daily basis is a form of fighting against resistance, and you can get as deep as you want with that topic, but we all have resistance in our lives. For some people, unfortunately, the resistance may exist in something like being abused as a child. It may exist in having cancer. It may exist in dealing with drug and alcohol problems. But people do come back from a lot of these things, and they not only do they come back, but they come back stronger. And so I always kind of felt the training is the resistance. It's what I'm fighting against, and really each and every day is a battle against yourself, and it's not against other people. And I think that people kind of think, oh, fuck that guy on Instagram, or this chick's doing that, or this guy's doing that, and they're worried about what other people are doing, and they're not really understanding that the battle and where you're trying to win is in every corner and every aspect of every single day. There's opportunities to cut corners. There's an opportunity to talk yourself out of the things you already discussed with yourself about getting better. You already told yourself you want to lose weight. You already told yourself you want to gain strength. You already told yourself you want to be more jacked. You want to be more tan. You want to be more this, that. You talk yourself out of those things when fatigue settles in, and when the day starts to get to you, and when things don't go your way, is when we start to look for an out, is when we start to talk ourselves out of things. And so I feel the resistance in the gym, the punishment that you inflict on yourself in the gym is an opportunity. I think people need to replace the word work with opportunity. Like, it's going to be hard work, but the opportunity to make yourself better is gold. And I think fitness is a secret to guys like you and myself and some of the listeners listening in right now. We're in on it. Like, we know the secret. We know that whether you're making $20,000 a year right now, or 80 or 100, or making a couple million, the people that are attached to fitness are attached to it for life, because they know the secret is in the work that you put in is what you end up getting out of it. And there's no better fucking feeling in the world than getting halfway through a workout and going to yourself, holy shit, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this motherfucker. This workout is fucking hard. Mm-hmm. And when you do, you feel so rewarded and you feel so good and so strong. I take that in other aspects of my life. I'm like, fuck, business is easy to me. Mm-hmm. People talk about success and all these different things. And these things, success or being great, if you define it, can be done very easily. Acquiring, greatness is a weird thing, because who the fuck knows what that means, but being successful is not hard. It's actually very easy. It's a matter of having the right choices more often than not over a long period of time. And then what ends up happening is just by default, because you've been doing good for a long time, people tell you that you're great.
I think that's really interesting. I couldn't agree more with that piece about success, but I think it really comes down to how you define success. So what does that look like for you? How do you define success?
Success is about improvement. So if we had 100 people that we grabbed off the street, and we knew for a fact that those 100 people did not work out, first of all, we probably wouldn't talk to them. But secondly, with those 100 people, we could all have them perform a deadlift. And, let's just say it's all men. One guy would deadlift 185 pounds, and next guy would deadlift 225, and so on. And out of the 100 people, you'd have a lot of different lifts that were hit. And you might have one guy who's never really lifted anything in his life lift up 400 pounds. Is that a measure of success? He picked up 400 pounds one time when he's never even put any work into it. Same thing with getting math equations. You take 100 people, give them some math equations, and there's going to be one person that rips through them all, right? There might even be a handful. If we're trying to paint a picture, out of 100 people, who's going to be good at painting a picture? A couple people. Like, we can all agree that there's going to be a couple people that paint a tree and a church, much better than the next guy. But is that being successful? Like, they may have done something good for the moment, but being successful is not being stagnant. And so you have to. My definition of success is improvement, and the only way that you can improve is to work on stuff every single day. You just chip away. And what I'm saying, that like success isn't hard for me, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm basically saying that it doesn't take as much as people may think. And it doesn't have to start out with you being a hardcore son of a bitch right out of the gate. These things, they take time. It takes a long time to work towards these things. It takes a long time for you to be more and more aggressive, and for you to kind of evolve into a savage, basically, where you're concentrated in all aspects of your life, your marriage, your kids. It's almost like a religion. Your marriage, your kids, the gym, your nutrition, your sleep, your hydration. You're on point with everything because you don't want to leave any stone unturned in what you're doing. And I think that when people start to understand that success can be a road to you having happiness and you feeling great, and maybe even in some respects being great in other people's eyes. I view somebody like my dad. My dad is my ultimate mentor. I'm a byproduct of perfect parenting, and I feel my heart goes out to those who haven't had that, those who haven't had a dad or a mom, or maybe even some situations haven't had either one give a shit about them. I don't know how things would have played out for me otherwise. But my definition of greatness is being good over a really long period of time. And I saw that from my dad from the time I was, from back as far as I can remember. And just because he's not, a social media icon or something, other people aren't going to really go up to him and tell him he's great necessarily. But he's great in my eyes. And there's different levels. I think when somebody talks about like being average, they're 5'8", and they're of average build. They're 180 pounds, 190 pounds. They make $50K a year. Like they're in this. They have 2 children. But if you're doing the right thing all the time, and you are progressing and you are improving, then you are being successful. And then in my eyes, that's being great, because you're able to provide for other people. You're able to add value to other people's lives. And I think that's the real key.
Adi and I were just talking about this the other night, and both of us agreed on the same definition. It was growth, which is exactly what you're talking about. And I think most people, they don't realize that success and fulfillment is much more attainable than they think, right? It's not as far away as they think. They think they have to be making $1 million, or they have to be an elite level powerlifter already to feel successful. And that's just not the case. That's just part of that resistance that I think you're talking about that keeps them from doing the things that they want to do.
Yeah, for myself, I mean, I probably have sold over 500,000 slingshots. I've made millions of dollars, and it doesn't. I don't have any problem saying that. Some other entrepreneurs and some other people, like, they cringe when they hear the word millionaire or million. I think people will get a little weird about you sharing your money, or they might think it's like flaunting it or something like that. But what I'm here to tell people is it doesn't fucking change anything. Right. It doesn't matter. I still have to fucking search through my dryer just like everybody else for my fucking socks. Right. It doesn't really, like, you can have other people do all kinds of shit for you, and you can pay them to do all kinds of different things for you. And I have a really good crew of people that do a lot for me. And you can have people like wait on your hand and foot and stuff. But it just doesn't change certain things. Like I told you, I got stuck behind a fucking train today. Like I was stuck there for like 40 minutes. Like there's just, it doesn't really change stuff. You still have to You still have to be a functioning part of society. You still can't be an asshole, and you still have to figure out a way to provide value to other people. I try to search for that. I'm in awe of that when I get around other people that I'm friends with that are giving that back to me. I'm like, fuck, man, this guy's awesome. Like, he's just doing this because, I don't know, because like we're friends. Like, this is cool, but he's not really worried about an IG clip or YouTube collaboration. You just kind of know from certain people that there's not a real ulterior motive. They're just in it with you, and they're kind of they're for you rather than being opposition of yours, you know. And so I think that those are some really key values to life. Is that, you know, Michael, how can I help you? You know, you guys are providing great resources to the CrossFit world. And obviously, if I'm going to send you some Slingshot products and stuff, of course I'd like you to post about it. And of course I'd like you to do this and like you to do that. But what I'd love 10 times more than that is to share information with you, to get in front of you and to watch you or some of your team deadlift, squat, or bench press and share the 20 years that I've been underneath the barbell with you, and to learn from you and to learn, oh shit, I didn't know that's how you did that. Oh, okay, like in these CrossFit workouts, they have to do it differently because CrossFit is, I would say like powerlifting is like maybe a little bit like boxing, and then CrossFit's a little bit more like MMA, where maybe I can't do everything the same that I could do in boxing, even though MMA has a lot of striking attributes to it. I have a lot more shit to think about. Like, you're going to throw a kick, you might double leg me, you might do some sort of crazy spinning like back fist move that you normally wouldn't be able to do in boxing. And so there's a lot of information that can be shared. The only thing you can truly give somebody is knowledge, and I that's where a lot of the great things can happen.
At what point did you see Slingshot becoming such a big company? I mean, there's this idea that you have to believe it before it becomes a reality. And so when you were starting this company, did you immediately see the potential in it, or is that something that developed over time?
I had a clear vision. I'm not 100% sure on why or how that happened. There's probably some other people that are listening to this that can relate. A vision almost to like a fault of being so sure that like this thing was going to work. And the vision that I had was very, very clear, and it took me up to about last year. So I don't have another crystal ball that's going to pop out, and maybe I do have another crystal ball I can look into that can tell me the next 5 years. But
that train's coming back for you.
What's that?
That train's coming back for you.
That motherfucker. It wants to take over my life.
Yeah, keep going.
But yeah, the Slingshot started in 2010. For those people that don't know, the Slingshot product is an invention of mine. I have 2 U.S. patents on it. It's a supportive upper body device for bench press, push-ups, and dips. Helps take pain away from the elbows and shoulders and pecs during some heavy lifting. It can allow you to overload so you can handle more weight. You can do more reps, more sets. All of that equals out to be more volume. And as many of your listeners already know, that more volume can add to hypertrophy as well as help you gain some strength. But when I invented the product, I'll give you a brief history of the product. Tore my pec multiple times. Might be the only inventor out there that has had to tear his pec to come up with an invention. Mm-hmm. But I tore my pec multiple times. Tried to think about ways of training and around and through the injuries, and wasn't not coming up with anything that made any sense. And so one day I was in the gym by myself, and I threw on an old bench shirt. Some of your listeners may know what a bench shirt looks like, but it's a powerlifting supportive gear that you put on your body. It's a shirt that's made out of really, really tough material. I would say it's like the equivalent of denim, and in fact, sometimes they even use denim. They'll use multiple layers of denim as a bench shirt are some strong polyesters and stuff. Problem with a bench shirt is they're very expensive. They could be $300, and they are extremely tight. A lot of times you need multiple people to help you get the thing on. Third thing is they're just an eyesore. They're just really ugly. They're just weird looking, and they have your arms all forward, and you look like a zombie when you're wearing the damn thing. And so
and they can take a half hour to get on.
It takes a half an hour to get on. You need multiple people to get them on. It's just an awful. You're in an awful situation. You're sweating worse putting it on than you are actually getting your training done. Really, really crazy. But I was preparing for a contest, and I was in the gym by myself one day, and I just grabbed this oversized bench shirt, chucked it on, and I was like, I wonder if I could bench and have the support of the bench shirt, especially if I wore one that was big, and still be able to get some full range of motion work in and still be able to train for this contest. I really wanted to compete because my squat was going really well, my deadlift was going really well. I felt really strong. And when I say pec tear, some people are probably envisioning certain things, but it wasn't like I blew my pec off completely. It wasn't like there was bruising all the way to the hand and all the way through my chest and everything. It was not like a rupture of any kind. These are more like tweaks, I would say. But anyway, I throw this thing on, and sure enough, it works. It takes all the pressure out of the bottom of the lift. And so from that point on, I was really dedicated and driven toward trying to come up with a concept all the way to the point where that was all I could think of. And I kept grabbing a hold of as many different materials as I could. A really surefire way to understand whether a concept of yours is a good idea or not is whether you can't stop thinking about it or not. If you can't stop thinking about it, it's in your head 24/7 for an extended period of time, then normally it's going to be a good idea and something that's going to work out well for you. So that was something that I continued to pursue, played around with a bunch of different bad ideas, bought some Under Armour shirts, and like in the morning when you put your shirt on, sometimes you put on both arms before you put it over your head. And so that was kind of the initial concept was, okay, I got the support in front of me across my chest and across my arms, and it would support me in a way that would support me behind the elbows, just like a spotter on some incline dumbbell presses or some dumbbell bench presses. It'd be kind of a similar fashion. It would support the elbows and allow you to push more weight. Played around with several ideas that sucked and several ideas that hurt. None of them were really working out very well, and so I then took a pair of wrist wraps and kind of had my dad hold them together, and he held them together in the middle as I had them wrapped around my biceps, and I pulled back, and when I pulled back, the wrist wrap hit him in the face, and he was like, ah, shit. He's like, I don't think that's what you want. I was like, no, that's actually it. That's the spring that I'm looking for, and that's exactly what I think will work. And so from there, it was a matter of taking some old knee wraps from the gym, having a friend of my wife's a swimmer. Her friend made swimsuits for people. So she just sewed these two raggedy knee wraps together. And we made the first Slingshot, which is the first thing you see when you enter the Slinger Mansion, my house. Have it encased, and it's first thing you see when you walk in the door, because that's kind of what helped build the empire, so to speak. But from that moment on, from the time that I tried on that first Slingshot, I met this woman at a Starbucks, and within a couple 100 feet of the Starbucks was a Fitness 19, and I told her, I said, hey, wait right here for a second. I'm going to go try this thing out. So I walk in the gym, pretend I'm a member there, and forego the membership stuff in the front of the at the front desk there, and I go and I proceed to bench 135 for multiple reps, and the weights were just kind of springing out of my hands pretty much. Got up off the bench, and that was the greatest feeling that I've ever had in lifting, even after squatting 1,080 and benching 854 and deadlifting 766 and doing some pretty cool shit. that was the greatest feeling I've had in lifting. I was covered in goosebumps from head to toe, and was just kind of at that very moment hit with a vision of a lot of people are going to be very interested in this product. Then a little bit over time, I would say, as I started ordering them and started kind of prototyping them and making sure they were safe, it was at that moment that I kind of foresaw the first 5 years of Slingshot happening. And I kind of saw basically up to around the moment that I'm in now, where things are tricky and things get a little complicated. You need to have some rules and shit like that. But I did see it being very successful, all the way to the point where there was never a product like this on the market before. I created this space, and I was so confident in the product that I ordered 4,000 of them.
Wow.
Looking back at it now, like it was really kind of dumb, because I didn't really need to order that many. But when you're faced with a decision of, being able to save, 50 cents a Slingshot per 1,000 orders or whatever the hell it is, you're going to go with, I thought that was a better route. And then looking back at it now, it wasn't smart at all, because it's still extra money, And so that's the way we look at it now. We like to run, we do place some massive orders, but we like to kind of run thin and keep our inventory kind of cranking, so we don't have so much money out the door all the time. So that initial investment of buying those Slingshots when I had no money was a giant leap of faith. And now I look back at it, it sounds kind of crazy.
That's such a great story, man. I thought it was really interesting what you said in the beginning too, about your personal path of lifting and learning how long it takes to build strength, kind of carrying over to your knowledge about business, and how that also takes so much patience and hard work. I see it a ton in the fitness industry. Like there's no shortage of hard work, right? And there's no shortage of well, I guess patience. There still is a need for more patience in some people, but for those that do get the patience in the gym but don't get how that works in business, what do you have to say to those guys?
I just feel they're missing the point. So I work on what I like to call personal development pretty much every day. I try to work on it every day. I don't have as much time for it as I used to. Personal development meaning you're sitting there just like literally working on yourself. And sometimes that might mean you, for me, I mean, I like quotes and stuff like that. So I might look up motivational quotes. I might investigate somebody like Henry Ford. I might look into some of the great quotes he's had, and those things may motivate and inspire me. I may listen. There's a guy that I like to listen to quite a bit named Jim Rohn, Rohn. I'm sure any business people are well attached to some of the things he said over the years. But Jim Rohn basically has a saying of that your income and your personal development need to match each other, all the way to the point where he makes a statement and he says, if you were to divide up all the world's money equally, it would end up back in the hands of the wealthy very quickly. And what he means by that is a lot of those people aren't going to be smart enough, patient enough, tactical enough to know what the hell to do with that money. And I see this happening in fitness all the time, where somebody has a great physique, somebody has a 900-pound deadlift, somebody just kills it in CrossFit. But when you talk to them or communicate to them, there's not that much depth there. It's almost like their experience with working out and exercising is like totally different than yours. Maybe it's because maybe it came more naturally to that person, or maybe they're just not a deep individual. Maybe they're not very intellectual. But it is interesting. So like sometimes on my podcast, I'll have somebody that has deadlifted something like 900 pounds. or I'll have somebody who's benched 600 pounds or something like that. And then I get 15 minutes into the podcast and I'm like, oh man, like we're really hurting, man. We're only 15 in. We almost always do an hour. And I don't know what the fuck to say to this guy to get anything out of him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got no story. And, hey, you know what? If you don't have a story, fucking make one up. You know what I mean? Like, give me something to fucking work with here, other than you just having 20-inch arms for no reason. So I think the development of the individual needs to go hand in hand with what they're doing. Their actions have to match their goals. Their goals and their intentions have to be transparent. I can't. I have a handful of coworkers and stuff. Everybody uses my phone and everybody takes pictures and does all these things. Well, if they find, if they found naked pictures of some chick that sent me pictures from Instagram or something like that, then how am I going to have a good, strong impact on them when I'm fake? When I'm a married man, that's not shit I should be involved with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to be transparent. I can't give a message about going out and attacking the day and then hitting the snooze button,
right.
6 times over and staying in bed. Obviously, none of us are perfect, and I would never profess that I'm anywhere near any of that. I have many flaws, and I try to work on them the best I can. But the point being is that your development as somebody who is involved in fitness, and it could come in any form. It doesn't have to be in the gym. I think just thinking that everybody wants to lift weights is kind of closed-minded. But I do believe that exercise is a crucial thing for us to do. We don't have anything to do anymore. We don't have to hunt. We don't have to dig ditches or build houses, or we don't have anything to do. So, I refer to training as artificial exercise. We need this fake exercise because our bodies are made to go through rigorous and hard things. That's how we're still here today. If you think about the way that we come into this world and the fact that we're still here, it is a fucking miracle. Because you come into this world, you're fat, you're drooling on yourself, you're eating your own boogers, and you're shitting yourself. I mean, you're just an absolute fat little mess, right? You have no skills. You got no nothing. You don't even know. You ever see a child look at their hands and feet and realize for the first time that belongs to them? They keep whacking themselves in the head. I mean, it's insane where we come from, and to not understand that we should be ever evolving people that are striving to turn into something better all the time. I have a lot of things in me that are really negative traits. I try to recognize them and I try to work on them. I can be extremely judgmental at times, and I try to be more compassionate. I try to think about, well, how does that person feel from their side? When I'm working with employees and I'm trying to communicate with them. I mean, occasionally I might fry somebody because every once in a while they just need it. I may have to tell them, hey, you know what? That fucking sucks. Like what you just did right there is not acceptable. It's not good. I occasionally have to bring the hammer down like that because it may have been something I've already communicated several times. But at the same time, even though I feel that way, a lot of times I stop myself for a few seconds and say, how does that help? Is this really gonna help me to tell Michael that his deadlift is the worst fucking deadlift I've ever seen in my life? And is it gonna help him? For you, it might actually help because you've been lifting for a long time. And you might be like, shit, man, I didn't realize I was that bad. But if Mark's telling me I'm that bad and he's been powerlifting for 20 years, then maybe he knows something. So occasionally things like that can kind of wake people up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but,
I mean, we're built to grow, right? If you look at motivation in general, when do people become unmotivated? Whenever the mundane kicks in, right? Whenever they don't see things changing. And so when people just get in a rut, it's when they stop evolving, like you're talking about.
100%. I know people, who tell me, "Oh, I'm going to start doing this new thing next month, and I'm really excited about it. It's like a job or something, right?" And they're talking about like selling insurance or some shit like that. I'm like, that's gonna be cool for 3 months, 6 months. What's sustainable? What's something that you can actually do? How often do you do this podcast?
Weekly.
So it would be a huge mistake on your part to say I'm going to do it daily, right? Like your next step might be to do two a week, and even at that, you're probably like, "Ooh, 2 a week," I don't, because you're smart. You probably kind of understand, like, wow, that's a doubling up, like that's a big commitment, right? And so I think that, again, back to kind of goals and being successful and stuff, I think the issue is that people are trying to think about it being a millionaire when they haven't really made any money yet, which is okay, because I've always been a dreamer myself. I've never been traditional with anything. I've never really even had a regular job. I'm too much of a bum for that. I had to just scrape by and figure out life in a different way. But I think that a lot of times people's the goals that they have are not matching the things that they're doing. And if you want to say that you want to be the best CrossFitter in the world and you work out 3 times a week, unless something different has changed about the way that people are training for CrossFit, or unless something has massively evolved or something crazy has happened, then I just don't think that's you're not probably going to go to the CrossFit Games if you can only train 3 times a week for 45 minutes at a pop. So I think people have to have goals, but they also have to have things that are manageable. What's some low-hanging fruit? When I talk about when I go to seminars and I talk about lifting lifting to your potential, a lot of times I'll talk to people about basically setting up your day so you can be successful. Let's just say you had a shitty day. Let's say your fucking dog got hit by a car or some shit, and you just know the day sucks. You don't feel good. You didn't sleep well. There's 75 things going on at one time, and you kind of know your workout's going to suck. Why not throw yourself an underhand pitch and hit that fucking thing out of the park? Why not pick your favorite stuff to do just to feel good for the day? Like you're training. A lot of times when you go in and train, this is a forgotten element of fitness. You should feel fucking better when you leave the gym and not worse. Every once in a while, of course, you should be like absolutely thrashed because you picked up something from somebody else. Somebody said, "Hey man, you got to try this." And of course it's going to hurt. There's going to be pain associated with it. No pain, no gain. We already know all that stuff. But working out should make you feel like $1 million. And if the things around you aren't going great and you're really strong, let's say you do CrossFit, you're really strong with gymnastics, fucking go in there and have a blast and do some gymnastics. Your programming and stuff, like if it's same thing with nutrition. If you can't throw down a candy bar here and there, then your whole entire training, everything you're doing must be off a little bit. If you can't afford to have a little bit of slack in the system, your programming, all these other things, they can wait. You can put them on hold for a split second, or you can at least just start your workout with something a little different that you feel like trying or you feel would be fun. You do, of course, always need to be cautious when you're trying anything new, because you can fuck yourself up and then make yourself feel even 10 times worse.
Right.
But I'm somebody who's gonna. I had some specific things I was supposed to do last week. I was supposed to do some regular squats, and I was just like, you know what? 10 sets of 10 of some regular squats. I'm like, that's gonna hurt really bad. And so I was like, you know what? I'm still gonna do all 10 sets, but I'm gonna count some of my warm-ups as some of my main sets, and B, I'm gonna squat off of a box because I don't want to be sore for 7 days, and I just don't feel like doing it for today. So finding things that are manageable and then still being able to get through them, because we all are going to lack motivation, and we're all not going to be 100% inspired every single day to go in and shake up the world. And so you have to throw yourself those underhand pitches every once in a while and let it rip.
And that, again, that goes back to how you started this podcast with the idea of patience, right? Most people are in this mentality of, I have to stick strictly to my program or I'm just not going to reach my goals, which in the long run, as you're calling it, throwing an underhand pitch or just doing something that is more enjoyable 1 or 2 days out of 30 or 40 or 50 days is not going to have that much of an impact, especially if it keeps you in the game, especially if it keeps you healthy and keeps you motivated.
How does this help? How does this hurt?
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself that. Ask yourself that when you're faced with these decisions of, I was programmed to do this today, but I'm going to skip out on that. Like skipping out on something, if there's a reason for it, if you can justify it, is there a reason why you want to have a couple beers with a friend? Like, are you going out celebrating? Because celebrating can be like a really touchy thing, and it could be a very sensitive thing to where I think you're better off just kind of continuing onward. And if you feel like doing something, you should just do it. It shouldn't have to be a celebration necessarily, because if you celebrate that you've been working out great for 3 weeks and start to throw it away by getting hammered for a week or whatever it is, I don't think that's a healthy way of doing things. But I think that if you can justify what you're doing, you know what, tonight I just want to have a couple glasses of wine with my wife and I just want to fucking chill out. Well, you've been working really hard. You've been putting in the time. And when's the last time you did that? How does this help? How does this hurt? This is going to help me by A, relaxing, and B, getting right back on track the second that we're done with those drinks or whatever it might be. So those are things I ask myself every day. I have kids, and so I have cookies and all kinds of shit in my house. How does this help? How does this hurt? Does this play into some of the discussions I have with myself about wanting to be in better shape? And if it doesn't, then I try my best. I'm not perfect, like I mentioned earlier. I try my best not to fucking do it.
Mm-hmm. So you're surrounded, because of your history in the sport as well as your business, you're surrounded by world champions in strongman and powerlifting and weightlifting. What are some things that those elite level athletes are doing that others aren't, that might not be as obvious?
The best guys in the world are fucking awesome in and out of the gym, is what I've recognized from some of the people I've been around. It may be a different experience for some others, but Brian Shaw, Stan the Rhino Efforting, Ed Cohn. Ed Cohn, is considered the greatest powerlifter of all time, but he could quite possibly be the greatest person I've ever met in my life as well. Like he's very kind, and if he thinks about you, he shoots you a message. He tells you he cares about you. He's got the strength to tell you that he loves you. It's like, how many dudes will say that? That's kind of a weird thing, guy to guy, right? Like a lot of people don't really say that, but he's comfortable and he doesn't care because that's the way he feels, so he just says it. And I really admire that. There's so many different forms of strength out there. I think we all get kind of obsessed with the weight that's on the bar, but a lot of the best people in the world that I know are strong in so many areas. Brian Shaw is one of the most meticulous people I've ever met in my life, and so is Stan Efforting, to the point where he's charting everything that he does. For several weeks at a time. He's got like an Excel spreadsheet about what he's going to eat, when he's going to eat it. He's meticulous. He's militant would be the word I would use. Like failure is not failure, or any sort of deviation is like not in the plan. Like they write this shit out and they just do it. Ed Cohn told me that his notebook back in the day looked like the movie Memento, because he wrote down so many things just all over the place about what numbers he was going to hit and what, when he was going to do this or when he was going to do that. If he tried a hook grip for a workout, he would write down how that felt. Mm-hmm. And he would say, like, don't bother trying this again. Or he would do lat pull downs for a few weeks, and maybe he would use an underhand grip, and then he would make a note like, this is going to work. This is going to be great for my bench. This is going to be great for my squats and help me keep my chest up more, or whatever it might be. Details. I think details and execution are what make champions. I think execution is king. Talking about something is one thing, being able to execute it is another. And that's why it's extremely important, the things that you're trying to execute, that they're manageable, that they're things that you can actually do, that you're not talking out your ass about stuff that you can't do, stuff that's way too far off in the future. We have meetings at Slingshot, at Super Training, and we talk. I start out every meeting the same way. I said, let's not talk about shit that we're not going to do. I know plenty of people that do that, and I think it's like a cowardly act to talk about. Like it'd be like I'm saying I'm going to fight you, but I have no intentions of fighting you. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, why would I even bring it up in the first place if I'm not willing to go there? And so, I think a huge mistake by a lot of people is just talking a little bit too big of a game and then not being able to back it up. And when you can't back it up, it actually causes anxiety. The thing that we're most fearful of is always things that are in the future, things that haven't happened yet. You think about people that are getting into their 30s, they're thinking, oh shit, I got to have a career job. I got to be married. They're thinking about things that are like coming, like, and they haven't come yet, and they're all crazy about it, right? So I think what separates out the greatest people that I've ever met is their attention to detail, and they don't really care if something, maybe not care is maybe not the right word. They don't mind if something is going to take a long time. Mm-hmm. They don't mind saying, like, and it's easier for them to say because they're already very strong and already very gifted in some ways. So sometimes it's easier, but everybody needs to take that approach. If you're benching 155 pounds right now, you can't try to bench 155 every workout. You're going to have to use 95 pounds for multiple sets and multiple reps. And you're going to have to figure out how to bench with the best possible form. There's going to be a lot of things you're going to have to learn how to do. You're going to have to be very detailed and very organized in your attack. And the more that you suck at something, the more time and attention and detail that you're going to need.
I love how you started this with kind of the concept of how you do anything is how you do everything, right? These guys are they're great in everything that they do, and I think one of the reasons that's the case is that being successful is a lot about habits, and the habits of having a successful relationship, like personal accountability and consistency and constant growth, are the same principles that you need to be successful in business and in sport. And so if you let yourself slack off in your habits around your relationship, it's only a matter of time before those habits leak into every other area of your life. I think that's huge.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people, they may have the wrong idea. They may be thinking about perfection. And obviously, you want to strive to do the best you can, and it'd be great to be perfect. That would be awesome, but it's not an obtainable thing. Greatness is not even really an attainable thing because, like, who the hell even knows what that even means? I think it can be defined in so many different ways for so many different people. Also, if you want to be great or you want to be good at something or successful, you define what that means to you. Who do you want to be great to or for, and why? Do I just want like a shitload of likes on my Instagram? like, of course, like all that stuff's great. Attention's great. Getting more likes than the average other person on Instagram that's in your space is great. Like, it's all cool. But what is it? Is it actually doing anything for you? Is it impacting your life in a positive way? Is it impacting people around you in a positive way? If I was to make a post right now of a fan that I just met at Starbucks a few minutes ago, if I was to make a post, a picture, hey, like, ran into this guy, at Starbucks, it was really cool. Just run into some of my peeps in Davis, right? It's not going to get that many likes, but like, is everything always about that? Like, the impact that has on that guy, that's more important than the amount of likes it'll get. It will get, like, people will love it rather than just like it.
Right.
That guy will go into the gym the next day, or his buddies will be like, dude, I can't believe that got posted. That was fucking crazy. And they'll all be talking about it. So, who do you want to be great for? Why do you want to be great? Why do you want to be successful? Whose eyes do you want to be successful in? Like, general society? I mean, people talk about making millions of dollars or doing this and that, and it's like, you just have to try to make some sense of it. What's it for? And also, where do you go from there? All right, you made $1 million. Yay. Like, what the fuck? What do you do? It doesn't stop there. I'm sure that Mark Cuban is way the fuck far ahead of me, right? Is he trying to slow down? Is he having a conversation with himself before he goes to bed? Hey, like, tomorrow we got to really slow it down. Let's make sure that we make less money this year coming up than we did last year. Let me make sure that I'm fatter than I was last year. Let me make sure make sure I'm weaker than I was last year. No one ever, I make this statement a lot, as no one ever goes into a fight wishing they were weaker. Nobody ever wishes they sucked more at something. So the objective is to always get better and to always have improvement. And it's totally fine with going from where you're at currently to just being a little bit better. And that's more than likely the way that it's going to happen for you. I have seen some pretty crazy success stories in the gym. I've seen some cool transformations. I've seen people gain 50 pounds in their deadlift in 2 or 3 months. I've seen people increase their strength just by moving their feet in a little bit on a squat or out or whatever. I've seen a lot of cool things like that happen, but still, where do you go from there? Like, it's not over with. Success or being great is not a destination. You're not like, I'm great, and then it's just like, hey, it's over with. Maybe for a professional athlete, it may be, but in general terms of being just a person, it never ends.
It's all about that path, right? It's all about getting on the path of progress and staying on that path. And if you can identify success as being on that path in every area of your life, then you're already happy, right? You're already fulfilled. But if success is based on achieving certain metrics or certain dollar amounts, then that's partly outside of your control. And so putting your happiness and fulfillment outside of your control is just a recipe for disaster and a shitty life.
It can be. How caught up have you gotten in CrossFit?
How caught up? Oh, very at times, for sure. And it was a miserable experience when I would get caught up in just the numbers.
It's terrible. And then if you're trying to train to make it to regionals, or you're trying to train to make it to the games, and people ask you how you're doing in your training, you're everything's like miserable. You're like, oh man, like, shoulders fucked, like your whole demeanor is screwed up. You're just, what an uphill battle it is. How good Matt Frazier is. You know how good some of these people are, and you're like, man, I gotta compete against this guy, or I gotta deal with this guy in this workout. Like, this is gonna be a son of a bitch. And some of that can be healthy, of course, but I think when you're not training for something like that, somebody says, oh, like, maybe a few weeks after regionals, or a few weeks after people figure out who's going to the games and who's not, it's probably like, oh, giant sigh of relief. How's your training going? It's going fucking great, man. I'm having the time of my life. I've actually been working on my bench press because I suck at bench press, and I've been working on this because I suck at that, but I've been having a lot of fun. And you're like, whoa, that's a totally different person.
Mm-hmm. So in my opinion, there's no best program out there. There's lots of different ways to skin a cat and get strong. But there are some things that are like people should never do, like run a half marathon after every training session if you're trying to get bigger. What are some things that you see people commonly doing today that they shouldn't be when trying to build strength?
Here's a quote that you can steal from me. The greatest program is the one you're currently not doing. And that is in reference to you can only get good at so many things at one time. So if you're working on strength, you're going to lose some aspects of conditioning. If you're working on conditioning, you're going to lose some aspects of strength. You can pursue all at the same time, but it would have to be stretched out more. Mm-hmm. So the frequency at which you attack a given thing would have to be stretched out more. But to your point, the biggest mistake I see most people making, and I see it in general fitness a lot. I see it in powerlifting a lot. People have just some really crazy body image issues. And I think CrossFit it's been interesting because, especially from a female perspective, it's really allowed women to quote unquote just let their hair down and be who they are. A lot of these girls, may start out really shy and not even wear shorts. They only wear leggings when they work out, but they squat and they train for performance. They get stronger. The shorts are just kind of part of the game. Next thing you know, they're rocking them just like everybody else, and they feel sexier. They feel empowered. I've seen a lot of improvements like that, but where I see a lot of people falling apart are the people that are like overly concerned with these body image issues. Obviously, you do want to always work towards being leaner and being in better shape and things like that to a certain extent. But I see a lot of people like they are trying to chase after being stronger and being like leaner at the same time. Mm-hmm. They're really concerned about their body weight. Powerlifting is a body weight oriented thing. You got the different weight classes and stuff like that. And so people are always trying to whittle down to certain weight classes to I guess, do what they think would be more extraordinary. But I think that the focus should be on performance, and the focus shouldn't be so much wrapped around these body image issues. There's two things kind of keep in mind. One is when it comes to strength, you're more than likely, if you're a newer person, you're more than likely not going to blow anybody's mind with your strength. It's not going to be anything new. If somebody came into your gym and they squatted 500 pounds, you'd be like, that's great, that's cool. But if they were something other than just a power lifter, you'd probably want them working on some other things. So I just see a lot of people that are too worried about and it's funny because I'm working on weighing less right now. I see a lot of people that are trying to weigh less but lift more. And the two things, they don't go together at all. We had a guy this week lifting a meet, and he squatted 650 at 198, which was outstanding. Great mm-hmm. squat, huge squat. But then, the rest of the contest didn't go very well for him. He didn't get a bench PR. He was way off on his deadlift. Now, he normally weighs about 206, but any sort of weight cut is going to affect you in a negative way. Powerlifting is not about weighing the least, it's about lifting the most. And so you want to try to figure out, how do I, again, setting yourself up for success. What is the low-hanging fruit? How do we make ourselves feel better? Mm-hmm. Make ourselves feel better by having a great workout. Make ourselves feel better by lifting more. We make ourselves feel better by setting ourselves up for success. I got some guys in my gym that are really smart. You'll see them squat the bar, and then they squat the bar, and then they squat the bar, and then they might put a 25 on each side, and they squat that a couple times. They do a couple sets of it, and you're like, what is this guy that does 800? What the fuck is he doing?
Mm-hmm.
He's waiting. He's waiting until he feels better. Obviously, for that particular day, for whatever reason, things aren't firing the right way. Groin's tight, hips tight, that's tight. Shit's not feeling right. A couple of our guys, one of our guys actually squatted 804 in competition. He'll squat, and then he'll mobilize, and then he'll squat. He'll keep going back and forth until he's ready. He'll sometimes squat 315 for like 4 or 5 sets,
mm-hmm.
and 315 is what percentage of his max? It's not a whole lot, right? So the point is 2 major mistakes I see people making are, one, they're just not being patient. They're not understanding that this shit takes a really long time. And 2, they're just too worried about the way they look or how much they lift. You worry about one thing at a time. You try to work on one thing at a time. You try to perfect one thing at a time. And then you're able to stick and move and start moving into other areas. You're not going to be sculpted and shredded and look awesome if you've only been lifting for a few years, unless your genetics are crazy. And even then, there's still so many other things to work on. So that's kind of the biggest mistake that I see. Trying to think of some other. There's some people that aren't embracing the lifestyle, and this is something I'd like to see more of, is people treating themselves like professionals.
Mm-hmm.
You have the dedication, you have the mindset to get to the gym at 8 a.m. every morning, and you have the mindset to put in a good hour and a half of training, but then you eat well throughout most of the day, and then you kind of finish your day off with a bowl of ice cream. Again, how does it help? How does it hurt? Is that anything that represents your goals, or is that something that actually is going against the grain of what you intended to do and what you actually want to do? And so that's a big issue, is kind of, as we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, having your personal development as a fitness person, as somebody who works out, having your personal development match what you're doing in the gym. Are your goals matching up with your activities? Do you really want to get better, or do you only kind of want to get, like, kind of sort of want to get better,
mm-hmm.
or do you actually want to get better? Make other people aware of your goals. Tell people what you want to do, so that way when I see you, I come into your gym, and you're like, Mark, what are you doing with a fucking Big Mac in your hand? I thought you said you wanted to get shredded. You have people that are going to kind of hold you more accountable. So those are some of the things I'm seeing.
I got a couple more for you, and we'll wrap it up. So you've been in the game for 28 years. So you've learned a ton over the years, and in a lot of ways, I'm sure gotten set in the way that you think about powerlifting. Is there anything that you've changed your mind about in the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot of crazy things that have happened over the years, but I would say probably the biggest thing that surprised me was the role of frequency. I didn't really. CrossFit is partially responsible for this. Well, not partially. They are solely responsible for this, because they just made Olympic lifting and powerlifting more popular. And I think something I've always said about CrossFit, and one of the reasons why I was attracted to it early on, was it causes accelerated learning, as you're getting coaches together that otherwise probably wouldn't normally speak to each other. Like, we probably wouldn't speak to each other if you weren't involved in the CrossFit community, because our paths would never cross. You probably would be in some other element of fitness that maybe you and I wouldn't match up as well with. But CrossFitters, they want to get better at stuff, and they don't really care. They don't care where it comes from. They want to figure out a way. How do I lift more? And so, because of that, CrossFit has adapted a lot of the methods from Olympic weightlifting. Olympic weightlifters frequently squat. And some of this stuff a few years ago was coming out, squat every day, and some of these things, and I'm like, this is just asinine. And I still think squatting every day is stupid, but people are getting some outstanding results with squatting multiple times a week. Years ago, I wouldn't think that would be the case. But I guess what I didn't realize is that there's many, many components to fitness, and there's many components to strength. And you could spread fatigue throughout a week by using frequency. Mm-hmm. So, for example, you could go 60% in a squat on one day, 70% on another day, and 75 or 80% on another day. And you can just repeat that the next week. Now, if you start to add up the reps, the sets, the percentage used, you start to end up with more volume. You'll end up with more volume in a much shorter period of time. Let's say it's over the course of a month. And let's just say if you lifted, let's say hypothetically, if you lifted once a week, you would squat 10,000 pounds worth of weight. But if you lifted 3 times a week and you spread the fatigue out, it wouldn't be 3 times that, because the fatigue or the percentages that you're using would be lower, because the intensity would be lower, because you can't have your intensity, which is the weight on the bar, and your volume all be through the roof at the same time. You'll collapse. But basically, even with those lower percentages, you would still lift more for the month. And as we pointed out earlier, getting stronger takes a long period of time. And so at those smaller percentages, but lifting 3 times a week, maybe instead of 10,000 pounds lifted for the month, maybe you lifted 25,000 pounds or 20,000 pounds. So you can make progress very, very quickly. I've actually even seen a few guys mess with, the daily undulating periodization, where they're taking, like, quote unquote, a daily max. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty crazy. I've seen somebody, actually I just coached, I work with some of the Sacramento Kings strength coaches, and I was working with a guy the other day, and he's never squatted 400 pounds. And so when I first met him, he was squatting around 365. So I got him to do 385 one day. And then I got him to do like 390. And then more recently, I got him to squat 400. And then that was just like 3 or 4 days ago. Then he sent me a video last night of him squatting 405. And so anyway, the point is that his frequency was able to increase. And that's something years ago that I wouldn't have really understood. But I guess it was explained to me that you can kind of think of your recovery as being in a sink with with the hole in the sink, the drain that drains the water out. You can think of your ability to recover being the drain. And not a lot of people understand that you can have that drain be a lot bigger. Mm-hmm. So you can drain out all the poison and all the negativity, because this is a weird thing, but training makes you weaker. It doesn't necessarily make you stronger. For every rep that you do, you become actually weaker and not stronger. So if your best squat is 405 and you squatted 315 for 15 reps, then you would know what I mean. By the end, you're fucking right. So lifting damages the shit out of you, but your recovery can be improved. And so that drain that you have can drain out all that shit that you do each and every day, all the way to the point where you had like somebody like Jerry Rice back in the day. His warm-ups for a game would make other people throw up on the field. Mm-hmm. Because his work capacity was through the roof. And so that's something that came in. And again, I credit CrossFit with that. Having such a high level of fitness and being able to recover, you just scratch your head. You're like, how is Rich Froning able to, I don't know what his best deadlift is. He probably deadlifted like over 550. He is in amazing shape. He's a drug-tested athlete. He's 195 pounds. He's single-digit body fat. And then on top of it, like, forget about the CrossFit workouts and stuff that he does. He's off the charts. And Matt Fraser is the same way. And anybody who's in the top probably 100, male, female, jacked, shredded, strong, fit. Which one of those people can't run 10 miles. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they can probably all either, A, take off and fucking run 10 miles or squat 400 pounds for a few reps. I mean, it's really unbelievable. But I think the biggest change I've seen in strength training and in powerlifting is the frequency. I would have never thought in a million years that doing something more often would really benefit you. And when you think about it, it does make sense. But I just always kind of just thought of weight training as being so different from so many other things, and apparently it's not.
I can't agree with you more. I do want to highlight though who you think increase, or how do you know when you need to increase frequency or you should try that? Because what I'm afraid of is some beginners out there hearing this and they're going from training, say 3 days a week, and then all of a sudden they want to train 7 days a week with the same volume every day.
Yeah. Everything can't be high all the time. You can go back and you can take a page out of the bodybuilder's book where they had light, medium, heavy, or even powerlifting years ago did that as well. But you can have a light day, medium day, heavy day, or you can even just associate reps with it. A lot of people don't realize this, but your reps can dictate your weight, and your weight can dictate your reps. But you're better off having your reps dictate your weight. It's going to keep you in line a little bit better. So, for example, you could have a day where you do 10s. You can have a day where you do 6s, and you can have a day where you do triples. What you don't want to ever get yourself into is the habit of maxing. Lifting maximally should be reserved for competitive moments pretty much only, unless you do them by mistake, which occasionally happens because you don't estimate properly and you just maybe you're in some sort of friendly competition with a friend in the gym or something like that. So you maybe take it a little bit too far. But if you're somebody that's currently doing something once a week, it would be a mistake to move to 3 times a week. Just add in like an extra day and see how that feels. Again, going back to what I said earlier, the best program is the one you're currently not doing. So if you're stuck and you're not making any progress, then that's how you know it's time for a change. If you've been squatting 315 for several months on end, it makes sense to move into something that's going to be different, that's going to challenge you in a different way.
So that quote is for that is the case when you've plateaued, is what you're saying, not necessarily when you're still making progress.
Yeah, if you're making progress, I mean, like this morning I weighed myself and I weighed less than I did yesterday, and I was scheduled to do some intermittent fasting today. And I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I not eat if I'm still heading in the right direction? So I chose I chose to eat breakfast this morning. Things like that, you get these different decisions based on different things that happen.
Mm-hmm. If I asked your closest friends and family what you're best at, what do you think they'd say?
Wow. I think what I'd hope they'd say is being creative, because it's only happened to me a couple times, but I had a couple people recognize me before as being an inventor, and that's actually been one of the coolest things that ever happened to me. Rather than being recognized as a lifter, I was recognized as somebody that invented a product. And so I would hope that they would say creativity, but I don't really have any idea what they'd say. If you asked some of the children in the family, they would say lifting, because that's how they know me. They just know that they just know I go and lift heavy weights. They don't know any of the details of it.
Right. Well, I can definitely attest to it, man. It's been inspiring to watch your growth and your team's growth over the past couple of years, and just how hard you guys are pushing and all of the different things that you guys are involved in. It really is inspiring. So I can definitely attest to that one. You have anything else you want to leave these listeners with before we end?
get involved in fitness. You know, if you're somebody that listens to this and you're in and out of the gym a little bit, get your ass in the gym. It only takes small changes on a daily basis to end up impacting and changing your life. Go to a gym where people know what's up. Go to a gym where people understand the game. And if you are not happy with the current location that you're going to, find another one. Sometimes these things take time. Be patient with it. But don't let fitness slip away from you. I think it's a huge, huge element of life. It's something that's helped me through many, many different periods of time in my life, from the time I was 12 until now, 40 years old. So participate. Go to a CrossFit event. Go to a CrossFit gym. Go to a powerlifting meet. Check out a powerlifting gym. There's a lot of different aspects of fitness, a lot of different aspects of strength. You don't have to succumb to just one thing. I know a lot of people that participate in CrossFit, Olympic lifting, powerlifting. I know a lot of people that like to do a lot of different things. Just find something that you like. I'm Mark Bell. My stuff can be found at howmuchyoubench.net. That's where I have all the Slingshot products, wrist wraps, knee sleeves. All the best gear on the planet is found at howmuchyoubench.net. You can check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/supertraining06. Tons of content over there. Just had the Smith Bros on there throwing down in the powerlifting meet. Some of you guys might want to check that out. I think your audience will really dig it. They did squat, bench, and deadlift. They did each one for a minute straight, minute on, minute off, and they did like 3 rounds of it. It was fucking crazy.
Love it. Hell yeah. Appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much for your time, man. This was great.
Yep. That was cool, man. My battery's about to die, so we hit the perfect time here.
All right, brother. Well, you have a great day, man. Thank you so much.
Catch you later, Mike.
Later.